Hi, everyone. Welcome. We are so excited to have you join our first Where Ace Takes You event tonight for our spring series. And tonight's event will focus on service and immersion experiences that led our ACE graduates as well as our current ACE ambassador to pursue this path. So I'm really excited for you to be able to hear from them and to learn more about their experiences both before and during ACE. Just a couple of reminders. It'll be helpful to keep your screen in speaker view so you can see the faces and hear the voices of our panel tonight. And we'll have some time towards the end for live Q&A. Up until that point, it'll be great if you could just keep yourself muted. But at the point where we transition to questions, my teammate Erin will share a bit about the best way to do so. So again, just really excited to be together and to get things going. So to start, I'm going to invite our panelists to share just a little bit of an introduction to who they are, where they're from, where they went to college or where they're currently in college, what they studied, and for our ACE graduates, just a bit about their placement in ACE. So I'll have Taylor start us off, and then maybe we can go down the line to Eller, Dan, and then Becky. Okay, sounds great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Bridget, and thank you guys for taking some time out of your evening to chat with us. As Bridget said, my name is Taylor. I am originally from Austin, Texas, and currently I'm calling Denver, Colorado home. Two places very snowy right now, which is kind of weird because you usually one is usually very different from the other. I went to the University of Notre Dame for undergrad. I studied political science, Italian, and ESS, or Education, Schooling, and Societies. That's the education minor at Notre Dame. And in ACE, I was a member of the 25th cohort. So excited to be sharing this night too with Eller and Dan, who are also members of ACE 25. And I was placed in Denver. So I was placed in Denver and haven't left yet at a Catholic school named by the name of St. Therese School. It's not technically in Aurora, but there I am still the middle school history and theology teacher. So that's it.
I'm Eller, as you can see from my name right here. But I'm originally from San Jose, California. I went to Boston College for my undergrad, and I studied philosophy and theology. And for my ACE placement, I was in Washington, D.C., and I am still in Washington, D.C. So I'm spending a third year here at Archbishop Carroll High School. Some things to do at Archbishop Carroll. Well, first of all, teach theology and psychology. And I am also a football and a basketball coach. And it's been a lot of fun. And as Taylor said, I'm an ACE 25, was an ACE 25 with Dan as well.
Hey everyone, my name is Dan O'Reilly. I'm originally from Queens, New York. For my undergrad, I went to the University of Scranton, where I majored in English, theology, and philosophy, and I minored in counseling. And as a member of ACE 25, I was blessed to be with Taylor and Eller, and I taught middle school English, language arts, and religion at All Saints Catholic School in the north side of Fort Worth, Texas. Other things I did there, also moderated the running club and ran the spelling bee for both years, which was thrilling.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. My name is Becky, and I am a senior right now at USC in LA. And so I am an ambassador for the 28th cohort. I'm a public relations major and a narrative structure minor.
Awesome. Thank you all for those introductions. To start off our conversation, I think it'll be helpful to focus on a little bit of your discernment to ACE. So just thinking about what ultimately led you to say yes to these 2 years. And I know, Becky, you're just at the very beginning part of this journey, so I know you'll have a little bit of a different perspective to share. But if you want to kind of point to in this question, particular organizations that you're a part of, experiences, roles that you took on, and this could be related specifically to our topic of service and immersion. But of course, if there are other opportunities that you feel like were really formative for you, great to mention those too. So anyone can start us off, and then we can just jump around with your perspectives.
I'll go ahead and start. I guess in terms of service and immersion, I was lucky enough my freshman year to have an opportunity to go on a service trip over spring break to the Dominican Republic, and I it was through the Catholic Center at USC, and I was not very involved with the Catholic Center at this point. I had just started a couple months before, and after that trip, it was really grounding for me after transitioning to college and kind of going through all the unknowns of everything. It just kind of comforted me and made me feel like me again, and like I this was what I wanted to stick with through college. So then the following year, I led a trip to Tijuana, where we went and worked with migrants and helped to build some houses down there. And I think like that specific experience really stuck with me in my heart because of the people we met. And I've always thought that service is so special because of the people, not only the people that you serve and who serve you in return, but also the people who you serve with. And so that was a big draw for me to ACE, was the community aspect and getting to serve with other people, and the opportunity to lead not only in your classroom but also amongst your peers. I ended up kind of organizing weekend trips down to Tijuana the following year because I just really wanted to go back and bring more people along on the trip and make it more accessible for other college students, and really just seeing like what a big impact just your time has on other people was very impactful, and it made me want to do service after college, and I didn't know what that looked like. And ACE came along, and I kind of stumbled into it. I was not seeking out ACE, and I think it definitely happened for a reason. I mean, I haven't been through ACE yet, but I'm very excited to do that and experience all ACE has to offer.
So in my undergrad, I was really privileged, uh, I think, to go to Boston College because it was such a place that integrated service and reflection so much. And I was able to be a part of uh, a bunch of different organizations, but some of the biggest ones for me was an organization called For Boston, where you did 4 hours of service in Boston, so creative little name. But we also got to reflect each week with a group of people who were doing the same service. So, for a little context, my first 2 years I tutored at a prison, and then the last 2 years I worked at a shelter for people experiencing homelessness, specifically working in the kitchen and also working in the clothing room, getting to work one on one with clients there. But some of the most wonderful things was being able to kind of go through these things and feel um, and maybe feel the hardship of people's experiences, but being able to kind of go back and talk to people who are experiencing these same things, and being able to really figure out not just doing things and then going home and separating them from our lives, but how do we integrate everything into our lives. So it was really kind of a wholesome experience. In addition to that, I worked, there's a school on campus at Boston College called the Campus School for students with severe disabilities. And it was really great to be able to um, just experience life every day with them and see the strength of the students, and they really warmed my heart each day. And it made going to class, again, just so integrated. Everything that we learned about, as I studied philosophy and theology, you always talk about human beings and life and God, these really small topics. But it was always really great to be able to integrate everything together. And so ACE was really a natural transition from there, because one of the greatest things about ACE is being with the community and being having a focus on formation, um, and having a lot of people together, um, just really good people trying to do really good things. And so it was really a beautiful thing to be placed with people in ACE and then be placed with people at my school, and for all of us to try to work together to build this kingdom of God. And it was a really beautiful experience, and that's really what led me to being a part of this.
Thinking about kind of what led me into ACE, I think it was definitely a mix of like a push and pull, probably starting before college, actually. I grew up raised over the summers by my grandparents, who were both educators and educators in some tough schools in the rural Northwest in Montana. And so I think their first example of what it means to live with people that you're serving and to not distance yourself, kind of like Ella was saying, from the hardships that they might be facing, but to integrate it as part of how you see the world. They were really my first example, even though they dissuaded me from becoming an educator. That didn't penetrate too deep. So by the time I got to Notre Dame, I didn't declare the minor, but I did seek out opportunities to even just be around kids. I was definitely following my heart. My head was in political theory, was in languages. So I was not like the kid girl that like always wanted to be around kids. Like that was not exactly it. But every time that I was and had a chance to guide them in some way or to laugh with them or learn from them, I found myself drawn to that, whether it was volunteering or tutoring, and kind of culminating in, similar to what Becky was saying, a more extended opportunity through the Center for Social Concerns at Notre Dame to spend some time with children who are homeless over 8 weeks during the summertime, and then the following year to actually be a teacher, which was such a gift. I experienced a lot of naivete in that experience. I was not a good teacher at all, but really learned, I think, there what it meant to just sit with someone. That's half the battle, right? Is just building a relationship that they will eventually listen to you and listen to what you're saying or trying to lead them to, and also to be accepted by a community, right? Because we can think of a million reasons why we shouldn't be, but that community in East Africa helped, and the priest community as well of Holy Cross helped to show me that it didn't matter if I wasn't the best teacher for the job, but they had an opening and they needed someone to care and someone to try and someone to be with them. So I think probably starting with the first educators, right, that come from our family, and then Notre Dame, just through their resources and through seeing something in us to send us to these places to be able to serve, were really what drew me then to discerning ACE.
So I think I always knew like the magic of like being in a classroom from the perspective of a student, and I think ever since high school, I felt a calling back to that sacred place to serve God in that particular way, in a way that gave me life, in a way that I was able to help others. And upon reflecting on like my service experiences, particularly in my undergrad, service both domestic and international, giving me a wider perspective on how cherished of a gift education is everywhere, and how some, myself included, definitely take it for granted. In my junior year, I was lucky enough to spend a few weeks in Uganda, where I was immersed in the local like Batwa pygmy culture. And they were unfortunately ravished by many social, political, and economic hardships, but their one consistent glimmer of hope is education, and how it offered a ticket out of a life full of poverty and struggle. And I realized that education offers that same hope to people all around the world. The obstacles are there in many communities, and while they differ in kind and severity, I was encouraged to make sure that my own eventual work at that point, what would eventually become my classroom, had as few barriers to education and self-betterment as possible. So that was one kind of very formative experience. Their faith too was something that pushed me toward ACE. It offered hope and joy no matter their circumstance. And I say my favorite masses in the United States of America were in Dillon Hall Chapel with the broader ACE community. But my favorite masses in the world were in Uganda and the joy and love of God were just unabashed and on full display in every movement, prayer, response, and song. And that motivated me to seek out kind of similar communities that have set that kind of vibrant faith, which ACE definitely became and still is today for me. Um, so that was definitely one formative experience that, kind of like pushed me toward education. If I was considering it a little bit before, it definitely just convinced me fully. And also through the University of Scranton, I served with an organization called Hand in Hand Ministries. This was in Managua, Nicaragua, and our focus for the week was to work with one family to build a home for them. And that particular family's driving mission was to make sure that their son could have a great education so that he can have opportunities and a better life than what his parents had. He gladly walked miles to school every day to fulfill his dream of becoming a civil engineer. So that was also very inspiring. I was also lucky enough to lead a trip to the University of Scranton with the Kino Border Initiative, which is located in Nogales, Arizona, and Mexico, right on the border, giving me a perspective that is often neglected of migrants, either recently deported or trying to come to America, and educating myself on their experiences, but also just spending time with them, humanizing their stories, and walking with them in that way. That became very prominent in my ACE experience, which I'll probably touch on later. But ACE was just the perfect way to have a concrete direction by which I can serve others. That was I was inspired with before through my undergrad, and that was teaching. And ACE not only animates that mission with such vitality and invitation and joy that's just so palpable, no matter what stage you're at with them, whether you're a graduate, whether you're discerning. I was an ambassador like Becky, felt it then too. But ACE also gives a lot of like practical tools and resources through classes, teachers, support systems to make your service as effective as possible. ACE knows that it's all about the kids and all for the greater glory of God, and I think it directs all its energies toward living out that mission. And I just knew that I and my students would be in good hands with ACE. So it just was a perfect storm.
Thanks, Dan. And thanks to all of you for sharing those valuable insights. And I think, Dan, you were kind of leading me to this next question. So it's kind of the perfect transition point. But really thinking about connections that you were able to make from some of these college experiences that you had, mentoring students, working in a school, just kind of really getting a feel for what a classroom environment can be, and how did it continue to impact and inform the work that you actually did as an ACE teacher. And for Becky, I know you haven't entered into this journey just yet, but what are some things that you're hoping for out of these 2 years? What are ways that you might hope to bring some of these great service experiences into your classroom, into your community? So again, whoever wants to kick us off for this next question.
So I can begin with what I'm hoping to learn, and hopefully you'll get more of a sense of what we actually will encounter from the rest of the panelists. But I I'm just hoping, I guess, like for myself to approach it with a heart of service, and just remembering, always remembering that that is why we're there. And I think a lot of my experience in service, what I found was you just kind of can't help but just get lost in that moment, and in like the physical and emotional task at hand. And so I'm really hoping to just give my all to my kids in my classroom, whatever age or place or subject I get. Yeah, I would definitely that, and a lot of patience, I think, too. I think you learn that a lot, and I've learned that a lot in my service experiences, and just kind of letting the experience almost just like wash over you like a wave. Like there's probably going to be a lot coming at me as a teacher in general, even in maybe a school that's easier to teach at. I think educators, there's a lot on the shoulders of educators, And it's kind of the same when you go and immerse yourself in a new culture and experience. There's much that you could have imagined that would happen, but much that you never knew were coming for you. So, really just being open to it and embracing all of the experiences.
I think if there was one experience that probably most directly prepared me for ACE, and unfortunately, it's not going to be any of the incredible education professors, although they are still there at Notre Dame, but probably was being a Girls on the Run coach because Girls on the Run works with fourth and fifth grade girls from a variety of schools around the world, actually. But in Northwest Indiana, we also had a team, two different teams actually. And I think just going in after classes had ended and driving over to their elementary school, and they were tired after a school day, helped me with my management and more so helped me to just find pieces of connection with them. It had been a minute since I had been, 9 years old. And so I think that helps me today as a middle school teacher, whether it's a 10-year-old girl who just moved in and is really shy, or the like swaggering 15-year-old boy who's ready to just be done with middle school and move on to high school where he'll be like, king of the castle or something. No. Then we have to find connections with those people. That's all we're really looking for. And so just to be able to put yourself in situations, put yourself in awkward silences with kids, and then make it happen. I think that's a service experience from college, being on a Girls on the Run coach that helped me to build connections with my kids now as a teacher.
I think one of the things that I keep repeatedly have to teach myself and remind myself of, which I had to do, throughout years of service in college and throughout ACE, was to really take time to delight. And it's something that I keep having to remind myself, and I know it's so important. But I just kept finding myself in ACE, just kind of getting caught up with, woe is me, this is so hard. I don't know what I'm doing, really. And just forgetting kind of how special it is and how lucky I was to be here and how blessed I was to be able to share and love with the people that were around me. There's one thing in particular that I can think of. It was around Christmas time, and I would like play Christmas music. This was after school, like kid. I'm like tired of everybody. I'm like, go home, don't come into my classroom. But I'm playing some Christmas songs, and I haven't been paying attention to them at all. And a kid comes in, and he's like, "Wow, what is this awesome song?" And I'm just like, "Oh, whatever. I don't know. Go look at my computer. Spotify's on." And I'm doing work on my computer, and he sits down, and I look up, and he's still bopping to it. And then after the song is done, he's like, "Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Juco, for letting me sit here and listen to this awesome song." He's like, "What is this called?" I'm writing it down, all this stuff. And I thought, I want to be like this kid, take some time to delight in what's around me and what is really, really special, like that kind of a way. So again, it's just kind of a lesson that I had to reteach and really remind myself how blessed I was to be able to do what God does all the time, which is love each and every one of us. And so I got to love the children that God loves. And it was just such a blessing that, again, I had to keep reminding myself over and over. And even thinking back to lessons in service that I've done, uh, just keep on having to remind myself about how really blessed I was to be able to be doing this.
I think one lesson that I learned through my experiences in service and immersion uh, was to like not get caught up in the the little details and lose kind of sight of the bigger focus, the bigger picture of why I was there. I mentioned before I worked at the Kino Border Initiative after my senior year, and you know, the essential part of the trip was talking to migrants, hearing their stories. They were so grateful to be listened to be humanized, and you know, I think in the moment I would get caught up, like, because we were also doing a lot of physical work, like cleaning the kitchen and making sure they had enough food, which is of course extremely important. But there were times when I would get too focused on, like, oh, the tortillas are just flying on the table, like I gotta go get them, but like I was in the middle of listening to someone. So um, just realizing that why I was there, like always keeping sight of the why, um, is a very sustaining thing I found through my time in ACE. Um, Even more so, like specifically my experience in the Kino Border Initiative helped me because I had that practice in accompanying people through something that was very tough. And there was this one unit in my eighth grade writing class, my first year of ACE. They were working on their narrative, so it was a narrative writing unit, and they were trying to brainstorm like what they were passionate about and what was important to them and their identity. Um, and some of my students were hesitant to write about something, and they like pulled me aside and they're like, "Can we write about like our family stories?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And so a lot of them wrote about like their stories of their family or like their family friends or something coming to America, and their stories of like immigration, whether it was like generations ago or just a few years ago. And it was like the most passionate that I saw some of them throughout the entire year. And it was really beautiful to see them like put that trust in me and realize that they were part of something greater than themselves, not just them in their school, but part of this like beautiful tradition of family that wanted the best for them. So it was, um, I was always reminded to remember why I was there, and not worry about, um, you know, I got my lesson plans and a half hour late or something, or I'm going to be late to community dinner, right? Like those things pale in comparison to the actual radical accompaniment that happens in ACE.
We are going to wrap up our time together. We just have one final question for our panelists. To the four of you all, um, just, kind of in a few words, briefly, what advice would you give to any student who's currently discerning a path to ACE?
So I would say, for this is kind of like a general piece of advice for anyone discerning anything, but I found it particularly helpful for ACE. So a friend of mine once gave a talk on a retreat about Jesuit values during my senior year at Scranton. And while reflecting on the concepts of Ignatian indifference, he posed three questions that he learned from reading Father Michael Hines, who coincidentally once taught at the University of Notre Dame. And these three questions were, about the thing that you're discerning. Is it a source of joy? Two, are you good at it? In other words, does it use your gifts and talents in the fullest way possible? And three, does the world need it? In other words, does it genuinely serve the people around you or society at large? And I could say that, if you're discerning ACE right now, the answer to those three things is probably yes or very close to yes. So I would just use those as a guidepost for anything, but I found it particularly helpful for ACE. So is it a source of joy? Are you good at it? And does the world need it?
Yeah, I was going to say something similar along those lines. I'm currently in the process of like waiting to find out my placement and kind of discerning like a preference for a placement in terms of grade level and stuff like that. But I think what mostly helps and helped me when I was discerning applying to ACE was thinking about like what I want to contribute and the ways I want to contribute, and really think about like practically how that can be put into action, and if it can be through ACE. If the answer is yes, then I think that ACE would be a fantastic program for you. But yeah, really thinking about how you can contribute and what you want to contribute um, is it.
In discerning ACE or really any opportunity, I think, guys, after college, I would say consider the people that you're going to be with, whether it's things you're hearing on this call or people who work for ACE that you've spoken with or ambassadors at your schools. But um, if they're the kind of people that you're seeing and you have the opportunity to surround yourself with people who are more intelligent, more humble, more generous, more faithful, um, than you are, like that's what I found in ACE. And once I realized that that's what I was going to be with, that's who I was going to be with, then I just tried to run for it as soon as I could, because they were the people that helped form me in my 2 years in ACE and are continuing to form me as friends afterwards into who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, those are really beautiful things. I think, and the number one thing is really openness. And this is something we always harp on. But St. Thomas Aquinas says that your conscience is the will of God, and so kind of listening to that and seeing, is your conscience well formed, and then kind of discerning it from there. And I think just kind of spending some time in openness, allowing yourself to um, really be in prayer and to be open to um, what your conscience might tell you, what the will of God might be pulling you towards, I think is at least what works for me, definitely, whenever trying to discern something.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for your beautiful insights tonight and just sharing parts of your journey to ACE during ACE. If you have the clap emoji or the confetti, I see that up there, the heart, whatever it is, throw it up to thank our amazing panelists. And then, really, thank you all for joining our event. We will have a couple more weeks of programming available. Next week, our focus is on education opportunities. So, if you're wanting to hear a little bit more about what some of those teaching experiences, courses could have looked like for people in college and how that translated to ACE, feel free to join. Erin will chat in the link to our Where ACE Takes You page where you can find all the registration details. But just thank you so much again to our amazing panelists, and thank you all for being here. And we hope to see you at a future event in the next few weeks. So good night, everyone.